Welcome to the Word for Life podcast, a daily devotional covering the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation.
In Numbers chapter 3 and 4, God speaks of how He has chosen the Levites to assist Aaron and his sons, the priests of Israel. You see, Moses and Aaron are also the sons of Levi, but they had already been chosen by God. God has chosen Moses to be the leader of Israel, and God has chosen Aaron and his family to be the priests of Israel. Now God chooses the other sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, to take care of all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, that is, to do the work of the tabernacle. These families of Gershon, Kohath, and Merari are now called the Levites. And God asked Moses to count these Levites by their families and clans. Moses was to count every male a month old or more in these three families. Friends, the first thing we can note here is that God is the one who chooses who will do the work of the tabernacle. You see, God did not give the choice to Moses, Aaron, or Israel. God Himself chose who the Levites would be. Even today, God chooses people to do His tasks. He chooses His servants from the mother's womb before the foundations of the world. Paul often mentioned how God chose him for the task of the ministry and appointed him for his service. In 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 11, Paul writes, "And of this gospel I was appointed a herald and an apostle and a teacher." Friends, believers know that each of them has been chosen to build God's kingdom. God has granted gifts so that the body of Christ can be built. And then in this chapter we read that each of these three clans had specific responsibilities. The Gershonites were responsible for the care of the tabernacle and the tent, its coverings, the curtain at the entrance to the tent of the meeting, the curtains of the courtyard, the curtains at the entrance of the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle and the altar, and the robes. The Kohathites were responsible for the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the articles of the sanctuary used in ministering, and the curtain. The Merarites had to take care of the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, posts, bases, and all its equipments. Friends, modern churches can also learn from this. Assigning specific roles to people can enable efficient work in God's kingdom. Paul appointed elders in every church to take care of the church. Roles and responsibilities in a church are very helpful. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 4 to 7 we read, "There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, and in every one it's the same God at work. Now to each one the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good." Also note in this chapter that God gives a clear leadership structure for the Levites. All three Levite clans were to work under the direction of the priests Eleazar and Ithamar. And then there was a chief leader for these Levites, and he was Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest. Again, modern churches can learn from this. Leaders and leadership structures are very helpful in building God's kingdom. This also means congregations need to respect the roles of others, especially that of the leaders. In Hebrews 13:17 we read, "Have confidence in your leaders and submit to their authority, because they keep watch over you as those who must give account. Do this so that their work will be a joy, not a burden, for that would be of no benefit to you." Friends, there is a specific reason why God chose the Levites to do all the physical work in the tabernacle. In chapter 3 verse 11 to 13, God first says that all the firstborn in Israel are His. When God spared the firstborn of the Israelites during the last plague of Egypt, God set them apart for Himself. We read about this in Exodus 12 and 13. So from that point in Egypt, every firstborn, human or animal, was to be dedicated to the Lord. So this means, actually, it's the firstborn of Israelites who were expected to serve in the tabernacle. But God did not want to disrupt families by taking all the firstborn for the temple. Instead, God states here that the Levites will serve in the place of all the firstborn of Israel. That is why God asked Moses to count both the Levites and also all the firstborn of Israel. And if we read chapter 3 verse 40 to 51, when the counting actually happened, it was found out that there were 273 more firstborn Israelites than the number of Levites. So in order to compensate, the Lord commanded that redemption, that is payment of money, will be made for the 273 firstborn Israelites. Friends, in all this, what we understand is that God has chosen people for Himself. He claims ownership of people. Even today, believers understand that they are not their own, but they fully belong to the Lord. And God, who chooses us, also gives us different tasks to do. So this choice is actually not a privilege, but actually a responsibility. Throughout the Bible, God chose different people not to give them a special privilege, but to give them a responsibility. Abraham was blessed with such a great blessing so that he'll be a blessing to other nations. Joseph was chosen in his family not to just enjoy the privilege of being the ruler of Egypt, but to feed God's chosen family during a worldwide famine. Friends, the very fact that God has chosen us gives us confidence and direction for our lives.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow for the next episode of the Word for Life podcast.